welcome back to my channel. My name is Cassie, also known as KnittaCass, and this is my YouTube channel where I show you the knitting projects that I'm working on, a little bit about what's going on in my life with my kiddos and the farm, and some mental health information at the end. So go ahead and grab your favorite beverage and join me. I am drinking my morning coffee, which is my Pepsi. This episode's probably going to be pretty short. I am doing it non-scripted because it's been a long time since I've talked to you, and I just wanted to get it done before the kids woke up So first of all, I'll show you a little bit about my WIPs in progress, or works in progress, my WIPs. So I have a goal of knitting 12 dishcloths this year, and I'm really not doing very well. So this is one of the washcloths that I'm making. It's pretty basic. It's just knitting, and it's out of a cotton blend made specifically to be used for dishcloths. And I think this is only my second one, and it's already April, so I need to play catch up. And then I finished this sock for my youngest Weston. It's from the Arne and Carlos Perfect Regia, which is rolled up so that it has yellow for when you're going to start. You knit your sock, and then there'll be yellow again, and you'll cut that once the color starts. And then you'll start knitting your second sock so that they'll all match. So this one's pretty neat. It's got, let's see if I can get it in there. So it's got some speckles here, and then some purple and gray, and orange for the heel, and then it gets closer together here. And because I was knitting it for a kid and not an adult, I had to kind of make do and be pretty creative about how to get them to match. They're not quite the same, and I've already misplaced the second one. My guess is he was probably playing with them, and it is somewhere along the way, probably in his room, not entirely positive. So that was pretty fun. And then this one you'll recognize from my last podcast. This is just a pair of plain vanilla socks. I am using some red stellina that I got from the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival a couple years ago. I don't remember the name of it. It's got some gold speckles in there. And then this color is by Dragon Hoard Design. And I have no idea what the colorway is because I had it rolled up long before I even started making a project with it. She is one of my favorite yarn dyers. And so I thought the red would kind of pull out some of the red in this yarn. And I am already making the second one at the same time, so I don't have second sock syndrome. And so I've been knitting, I think it's 10 rows, and then going to the other sock. But I haven't picked these up probably since my last podcast. Oh, thank gosh, that's not a needle attached. So here's the second one. And it's in one of my old Ipsy bags. And so is sock number 1. All right. I'm still working on my Cozy Memories blanket, which is where you use sock yarn and you knit a square, you pick up stitches on the old square, you knit a square, some mitered square, and then you have this nice colorful blanket that looks kind of like a quilt. It has all these different squares of different colors. So I'm pretty excited about when that's going to get done. I think it's probably half done. The width is probably done, and I think the length might be half done. But I think it's going to be one of those projects where I'm not going to know I'm done. Like, I'm not going to plan it. It'll just feel right, and then I'll know I'm done. I also casted on the Musselburgh hat. It's pretty trendy. It's going around everywhere. It's in my pocketbook so that I can have it on the go whenever there's a few minutes. And I do have my daughter who has her permit, so I've been able to work on it a lot more than usual when she's driving. Oops. Slipped a couple stitches. Okay. And this is made out of a yarn that I got at the Must Love Yarn Shop. I've already misplaced the tag, but I do remember that the color is Unicorn Zombie, which is pretty amazing. It's got mostly a nice variegated blue and then pops of colors throughout with no rhyme or reason. It's pretty random. And I believe that I've got just maybe an inch or two left before I start the decreases. I might be able to start decreasing now, but I didn't have a tape measure with me, so that's probably something I will do later today. And I also dropped a stitch, and so a good trick when you drop a stitch, if you're not able to fix it right then and there, you take a little stitch marker, you pick up the stitch that dropped, and you connect it, like you put the stitch marker on that stitch and the stitch above it, and it holds it in place so that it doesn't run like pantyhose. And then when you're done, or when you get a chime, you can go back with some yarn that matches, and since it's already past the time to be able to pick it up and add it to your needles, you would need to kind of sew it together like weaving in ends, and then it will be seamless. So that's a trick if you're on the go and you don't have an extra needle, you don't have a crochet needle. So you just loop it onto the missed stitch and the stitch above, and it will prevent it from running. So there's that one. And then the one that I'm most excited about, I've been working on it quite a bit since our last podcast. This is the Stardust sweater by Tristan of Dragon Hoard Yarn. So this is what I have of the sweater so far. It's got an amazing bobble pattern. And I just wanted to show you that this is Luna Lovegood, and I put her here the last time I podcast. So I have knit from Luna Lovegood all the way to the bottom since our last podcast. And I'm going to go ahead and move her down to the bottom so that the next time I podcast, we can see how much progress I've made. Okay. Alright, here she is, ready to go and see what I do before the next podcast. I believe that's it for works in progress. I've been kind of going through like knitting monotony. So I've been knitting mostly, I'll be spending most of my attention on one particular project, and then I will spend a little time on another project. Whereas in the past I was able to kind of share them a little more evenly, but I'm really focused on the sock pattern that I'm making and the Stardust sweater that I showed you. I'm not ready to show my sock design just yet. I'm having a little bit of difficulty making what's in my head actual reality. So it might take a little while, and that's okay. I want it to be done right, and I want it to look the way I want it to look. I believe that's it for works in progress. I have absolutely no finished objects, which is fine. I have been working on some pretty big long-term projects, and when I'm getting kind of antsy or need something quick, I've been going to my Cozy Memories blanket, which I should probably direct my attention to some dishcloths so I can make that goal. Let's see. In terms of books that I'm reading, I have finished Ready Player 2 by Ernest, Cline. That was pretty good. Not as good as the first one, but I did enjoy it. I gave up on the Southern Book Group's Guide to Killing Vampires. I don't know if I just didn't stick with it long enough, or it just wasn't my taste, my aesthetic. I hardly ever give up reading books. I usually finish them till the end. I could not do that with that one. Let's see. I finished Broken Promise. I can't remember the author. That was a pretty quick mystery read. And I'll put a picture in of the book and the author name. I have finished A Court of Silver Flames, which I might have said in my last podcast. I finished The Midnight Library. That is an amazing book. So it is about a girl who's very depressed, well, a woman who's very depressed and is really just feeling like a failure and wants to give up her life. So she ends up in this kind of middle world between the real world and actually passing on, where she can decide a little bit about whether she really wants to keep going and be dead or if she wants a second chance. And in the Midnight Library, she has a chance to select a book, which is all the different possibilities that her life could have turned based on a single decision. And it kind of shows her a little bit about what that life would be like, and she can choose whether to stay there or come back. So I thought that was pretty interesting. It really helped me think about the things that I beat myself up about that really, like, to me right now, feel like a big deal, feel like a failure, but in perspective of my whole life and how things have changed and all the positives in my life based on the decisions I made, it was an eye-opener to me that some of those things I'm beating myself up about really aren't as important as I'm giving them. So I'm giving them more value and more weight in my life when indeed they're probably insignificant. There was a couple of choices that seemed to really, there was a couple things she really wanted to fix or undo, and more often than not, she was not happy with the results when she had that chance. It also opened a really big conversation between me and my husband about the things that we thought we would do versus the things that we did end up doing, and kind of exploring what our lives would be like if we had taken up those opportunities or made those decisions. So that was pretty cool. I am listening to The Library of Lost Things, which is pretty good so far, but I haven't really gotten much into it. I'm doing that on Audible. And then I'm also just started listening to Shadow and Bone. It's a series of 3 books, and I wanted to read them years ago. I saw them in the library, and for some reason, every time I went in the library, I chose something else instead. And now one of the TV streaming devices is doing it as, I think, as a series. So before I watch that, I want to read all 3 books. So I started reading the first one, Shadow and Bone. I have it on Audible. I was listening to it while I was doing some laundry yesterday, and that seemed to work pretty well. I'm not really in it enough to get a feel for the book, but it does seem like it's my genre of the types of books that I really enjoy. For example, it's in that category of books as Crescent City and Kingdom of Ash, which are some of my favorite books right now, or book series. That's really my favorite type of genre. And then in terms of life, we've got some pretty exciting things going on. I am in the middle of painting our youngest's bedroom. We have painted every kid's bedroom except for his so far. He picked out his own colors. He's got a mint green for the main walls and a darker green, kind of like I keep calling it an olive green, but that's not quite the right color. So I'll try to put some pictures in. He's been helping me paint, which has been pretty fun. We have just the trim left. I'm hoping we can finish that pretty soon, as he's sleeping in the living room until his room is done, which he thinks is great. But I know in actuality, any sleep that you have that's not actually in your bedroom is really not as good as if you're sleeping in your own room, in your own space. So hopefully that'll be finished soon. And kids are growing. My oldest got a job again. She had a job a 1.5 to 2 years ago, and then needed to take some time off for her mental health. Things have gotten a lot stable in that area. She's starting to build her confidence again. So she just started working again at McDonald's and is super loving it. That's where she had worked before, so it's kind of like riding a bicycle. She went and she pretty much knew, except for the specials that have changed, what to do, the workflow, and what was necessary. My second oldest is looking for a job. He had a job that he really enjoyed for cleaning the state buildings in Montpelier and some offices around the surrounding areas, but he could only work on weekends because I wouldn't let him work until 11 during the weekday. So he quit because he wanted a little bit of a social life. and I am trying to encourage him to find another job or see if he can work revised hours at that job. I have a feeling him and my oldest will get their licenses at the same time. My daughter was having a lot of mental health issues, and it was affecting her anxiety in new situations, which makes sense. But it was making her too nervous to be able to try to do certain things while driving. And so we held off a little bit on her driver's license. She missed driver's ed for that season. She's currently enrolled in driver's ed right now and should have her license pretty soon. And then my other kiddo, Michael, will be eligible to get his license next. I'm trying to think if he got it his birthday month or not. If he got it in his birthday month, it'll be the next October. So he's pretty excited about that. My husband and I are doing some dreaming about what we want our bedroom to look like and some revisions to the outside of the house and the kitchen and the dining room. And I know it'll take some time. It's a pretty big investment, and I want to make sure that whatever we do is what we really want, so we don't have to redo it or be unhappy. I believe that's it there. Oh, big important life thing. So I have decided, and I've been wanting to do this for a long time, that I will be getting some sheep. And I did get permission from my mother-in-law, who technically, my in-laws technically own the farm. And it used to be a working milk farm. It's not right now. And so she bought 2 sheep for meat. They are Katahdin sheep, which is a sheep brand that was made in Maine. I can't quite remember. It's quite a while ago, and they're made to be hardy and good meat animals. And she dangerously told me that I could get at least 2 more, or start with 2 more sheep, and it would be my decision what kind of sheep, and they would be, my job to do, and I would buy them. So I went sheep shopping, and I found some really great Finn sheep, which have, let's see if I can do this from memory. They have really good wool. It's like medium grade, and it's got a pretty good staple. It's good for hand spinning. It's good for knitwear. And other than their ability to forage, which is a little weaker than some of the others, they are pretty hardy and pretty resistant. And so I'll show some pictures. I'm getting 2 ewes and 1 ram, and I am super excited. I'm kind of already coming up with ideas of things to build on the farm for them and how to use their wool, where to process it, as well as the idea of how I'm going to breed them and the long-term plan for breeding so that there's no inbreeding. So that's been pretty fun. I've got 3 books that I'm reading on that to try to study, because I don't like going into a venture without doing my homework. I am always a student. That's it. So then for mental health, as I always finish with something for mental health, I just want to remind you that you don't need to do what other people want you to do. And I don't mean be defiant. I mean, don't always say yes. Don't always feel like because you love them or because they're family that you need to do what they want. Know what your boundaries are. And even though, let's say you're a person who's always saying yes because you're afraid of disappointing, or you think that because they're family, you have to. It's going to be hard at first. But what you do is you establish your boundaries. Something you really think is out of your reach, you really don't want to do it, it's a big hassle, it goes against something you believe, just know that every time you say no, that it gets a little bit easier, and you get a lot more respect, because people start to realize that you're not going to do everything they ask, and that your time is valuable, and that you appreciate yourself, your morals, your time, and they'll start to respect your boundaries. It's going to be a bit rocky at first. Hang in there. It's definitely worth it. So recap on that. Make your boundaries. Know what you're willing to do, what you're not willing to do, and stick to it. even though when it first happens, you're going to feel scared, have anxiety, feel like you're doing the wrong thing, whatever negative self-loop you do. Ride through it, as in, most difficult things. And then it becomes easy, and then over time it actually becomes something that you do without thinking. I believe that's it. I will be going to a yarn dyeing class for the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival pretty soon. And so if I have it dyed up before I finish editing, I will put it in here. And I didn't say, a little out of order, that the patterns I'm drooling over are the same patterns from last podcast. I'm not going to take the time to put all the pictures in and talk about them because the list is about this long, but just know that I have not casted on any of them. It's kind of like a to be read pile. It just keeps growing, and actually reading them and starting to decrease that pile never really seems to end because you're always adding new things that you want to do. I hope you all have a great day. Don't forget to fill your cup and do something for you that makes you happy, and I will see you next time. Bye!